So what is battle value? How does it work? And what are some of the tactical advantages, disadvantages, ideas that we should be aware of as we're building out our lance? That's what we're going to explore in this Battletech vlog, and kind of jumping back first, because we need a little bit of a framework to understand battle value. It's not the only way, but it is a way. And why would we use battle value? If we look at historical wargaming back in the day, or even now, the idea of historical wargaming, DBA, DBN, chain of command, Napoleonics, you're looking at a snapshot in history, and you're building your army based on a battle. So it's like, hey, we've got this battle we want to recreate. We recreate the terrain as best we can based on historical accounts, photographs, satellite images, whatever that's going to be. You do have modern historical wargaming too. And then from there, we draw out our forces based on what was present in the moment. It's kind of a history lesson. And then we fight it out. And the idea of historical wargaming is to answer the question, what would you do? How would this tactic work? If we went here instead of there, would there be a different outcome? So the forces that you see, they're not always balanced. They are not always equal. And there's a lot of stuff that might not be present. We see this when I play my Romans. There's certain units and certain gear that I like to play, but is it early Roman period, mid, late? You can't mix and match. So historical wargaming has these limitations because we're trying to recreate history. Now we jump to modern or sci-fi or non-historical war games where you have a narrative, you have a reason for fighting, whether that's Battletech, Warhammer 40,000, X-Wing miniatures. You have a narrative. We're playing a game, and you have factions and a history. Some of us will jump very deep into that. Others, it'll be a superficial level with that. But ultimately, we're trying to recreate this historical narrative. And within that, there's this idea of being able to play lots of different units. Now, again, are we talking about Inner Sphere? Are we talking about Clan Invasion? Are we talking about Star League? There are different periods within Battletech, but the idea is we want to be able to build a lot of different combos and play a lot of different combos, and at the same time, most of the time, have it be somewhat fair. Yes, it could be an attacker versus defender mission. It could be part of a campaign where you're outnumbered, outgunned. It's just a target-rich environment. But for the most part, most Battletech games are somewhat balanced. I say somewhat because nothing can be complete. So the battle value system is a point system where we can agree ahead of time on a certain number. Obviously, the more points, the more stuff, the bigger the game. And you can select your stuff. I can select my stuff. And for the most part, it's equal. Now, if we jump back, originally, it was C-bills and tonnage. So if we wanted to play Battletech beyond just the initial experiences where you're just throwing down mechs, you had a lot of tie-ins from the role-playing games where mechs were given a monetary value in C-bills. You could build your mech, buy your mech. There were ways to adjust it. So the early system was like, go in with X number of C-bills and buy your mech. But that was not pinpointed accuracy. There was a lot of stuff that didn't quite have C-bills, or certain combos made things much more powerful beyond the C-bills, and it didn't quite capture all of it. It was better than nothing, and a lot of us that played Battletech the RPG, C-bills was a natural extension because you got paid in C-bills and you bought mechs and you bought stuff, and that's what we played. At the same time, you had tonnage, but there was also a parallel thing. With the mech creation rules, you would have a certain amount of tonnage, and then you would go in and add an engine, add this, adjust that, and you had limitations, right? If I had 50 tons, I couldn't pack in more than that. So for a while there, a lot of Battletech players, and we played with it for a little while, it was, okay, you want to play what, 500 tons? And you would play. But again, wasn't perfect. Then we arrived at battle value, BV1, BV2. BV1 was the initial one for a long time. BV2 is kind of the tightened version of it, where things were assigned a point value. So you were still dealing with tonnage, but from there, as you created your mechs, you assigned points, and mechs were worth a certain number of battle value. We could then say, okay, now how much are you playing? 2K, 3K, 5K. The clans really kind of accelerated battle value, in my opinion. Looking back, although, there's so many wargaming systems floating around in my head and RPG systems and things like that. I do remember when the clans were released, we were really hyped for it. And since the tech, it was restored tech, lost tech, clan tech, that was vastly different and vastly more powerful. We needed battle value to kind of make that work from that perspective. So the battle value is a numeric system that allows you to buy your stuff, your points. Now, how do we tweak it? Well, when you look at a mech from the tech manual, it's fresh, ready to go. It's at its maximum loadout. Do you really need all those missiles, all those autocannon rounds? Do you really need those machine gun rounds? The battle value assumes at the highest, if you take and decrease your loadout from there, now you start to decrease your battle value. If there's some stuff that you're just never going to use. I mean, I play an awesome mech, literally an awesome assault mech all the time. And years I've been playing it. And so many times I get in there and I'm like, wait, I've got a small laser. That's what that little radar dish is up there. Let me blast that out. There's some mechs with some weapons that, yes, Fritz, there is that one time where both my arms were blown off. I was completely stripped, and all I had was that small laser in my head. Excuse me, the Awesome has the small laser. Small laser in my head, right? And I fired it, and I got an engine critical, and it exploded. Like, yes, any weapon is a weapon. But if we're talking battle value, if I have a mech that has a weapon that I'm never going to use, drop it. You save some battle value. Now, if it's a small game, what am I going to do with that? If it's a larger game, well, that might be some more infantry. That might be some more stuff. We also have to adjust battle value and be mindful of the mech warrior. That battle value assumes kind of a standard mech warrior. You can increase the skill of your mech warrior. That brings the battle value really up. Or I really never really decrease battle value. In terms of my mech warrior. It's hard enough with a standard mech warrior, but in theory, you can adjust up and down for that. So this idea with the battle value is it assumes a fully operational, brand new, freshly painted, standard mech warrior. That adjustment can go up and down, and you can get little tweaks here and there by how much you want to dive in. You could possibly, if it's a bigger game, strip down some ammo. Although you could counter and say, look, it's a big game. I need all the shots I can. You can kind of play around with some weapon configurations, bank that battle value, increase a mech warrior or two, get some infantry on the table, do something somewhere. The battle value adjusts. The battle value changes. So what do most Battletech groups play with? My experience, and I say that because it's just my local meta, like 90% of it is battle value. There is one group that has been running a Battletech campaign once a month for as long as I can remember. And I occasionally drop in because the scheduling's a little bit different with the time I play Battletech, and it's a little bit of a journey to get there, but it's always absolutely worth it. Playing with that Battletech group, I'll drop in as maybe a mercenary or to play kind of some game master mech forces. But they've been running a campaign. They play everything. They're mercenary companies. They play everything off C-bills. And it's really interesting to see how that works, because now with the C-bills, and it's a GM sets up the scenario and then the players play it. It's interesting there because with the C-bills, it's almost like Battletech RPG. Now we get into like negotiations and price reductions and buying 2 for 1 and kind of that perspective of it where it's fluid and it's a different game. It's not as tight, but it's interesting in its own way. But that's one group out of about 5 around here that I know. For the most part, and I have to say, I think for the most part, obviously in the comments, agree or disagree, I think for the most part, most of us are using battle value. But understanding as a new mech warrior or a new mech commander to the game, and you're building your lances, you're building your groups, this is how we got at battle value, and it assumes the highest. There are ways to tweak and adjust, but also there are ways that if you're not aware, that technically technically they changed the battle value.